This world is a fusion of gaming and reality. There are different classes, countless tombs, dungeons and, of course, monsters. For killing the latter, the player gets experience points, materials, new equipment and other useful things. However, no matter how terrifying the monster is, it is no match for the awe-inspiring, mystical and rare dragon with incredible power. It was a momentous day for the students at Lungo Third Academy, as the placement ceremony would not only affect their ability to enter the university, but also their future development. That was why the teacher urged the students to be confident even though the results did not depend on them. He warned that whoever is strong in spirit can get a fighting grade. One of the students waited for this moment with particular trepidation. It had already been 3 years since Lu Fan had gotten here from the Blue Star. In the few years of living here, he had become more aware of this world. 3 main groups of classes can be distinguished. At the top is the martial class, warriors, mages, archers, and others. This class has powerful abilities to explore dungeons and collect loot. In fact, everyone dreams of being among them. Following them is the support class. They include spellcasters, healers, and the like. They can create special items with powerful effects, but the purchase of materials will cost a lot of money, so most often rich people join their ranks. Finally, at the bottom of the career chain is the service staff. Those unlucky enough to join this class have to work hard to support themselves. For example, his aunt Hanku, who works as a chef, works at a small bakery to pay for her tuition at the academy. Despite the fact that the age difference between them is only 8 years, Lu sees how hard the girl is trying, and therefore just has to become a better warrior to provide her with a decent living. After finishing the phone call with the principal, the teacher happily informed the students that the distribution ceremony would begin very soon, so they rushed out of their seats and ran screaming to the exit. Noticing Lu Fang's excitement, the man asked him not to worry, reminding him that he was the best student in the class, but all of the young man's attention was focused on the status window that announced the successful activation of the Super Treasure Card system. In the next second, Lu also rushed towards the exit, almost knocking down the teacher in a burst of emotion. As he swung across the flight of stairs, he couldn't believe his happiness. Although he didn't know how much use he could get out of the system, one thing was for sure: it was impossible to explore the world without it. Soon all the students were looking with genuine awe at the distribution crystal standing in the middle of the huge hall. Many of them had seen this object for the first time in their lives, and therefore the surprise, as well as the butterflies in their stomachs, could easily be attributed to the importance and impact of this distribution ceremony. The old man behind the podium introduced the priest beside him, explaining that he was the one who would lead the procession, and in the same second, Lu Fang obtained the skill identifying eye, which was used to see the basic information about this man. However, it was not the level or class of the priest, but rather his exorbitant bill of 5 million dragon coins that was the main focus of the young man's attention. He was certain that Auntie would not be able to earn such an amount even if she continued to practice steam buns for the rest of her life. Finally, the speaker asked for silence, announcing that whoever's name was called had to come to the stage. The first to be called up was a typical schoolboy, the kind that would make all the girls within a 10-meter radius hysterical. Those who closely watched the behavior of the distribution crystal understood that, despite the random nature of the profession, certain characteristics can affect the choice of class, and therefore there was almost no doubt that this guy received a combat class, and soon the crystal showed him a fireball mage. His classmates were a little less lucky: herbalist, miner, and one bulky guy was a tailor. Lu Fang understood that once a class was obtained, life would change dramatically. Those who had the honor of becoming a warrior or a mage could forget about the hardships of simple laborers, such as a miner or tailor. Nevertheless, noticing that only a few of the students had gotten martial professions, Lu himself began to worry, but there was nothing to do, and had to get up on the stage when he heard his name. Finally, he laid his hands on the crystal, telling himself to stop being nervous as there was no point in it, and suddenly the space around him lit up with the scarlet color of blood, and the ground itself began to tremble. Then a huge dragon appeared, and a warrior in powerful armor and a huge sword came out to fight it. It was clear that Lu Fang had beaten out one of the hidden classes, but the probability of such an event was simply unbelievable, as it had only happened once before, and that was 10 years ago. Finally, the noise of the battle died down, and an old man came running up to the boy, asking if he was a mage or a dragonblood warrior. However, when he heard that Lu had gotten the dragon tamer profession, the man recoiled, wondering how, despite the epic battle, he had gotten the most useless class. After the ceremony, Lu strolled the streets of the old city of Jianghai, studying his status window with interest and pondering what had happened on that stage after all. Upon hearing his classmate's profession, the other students regretfully assumed that he would have to live a life as ordinary as that of the third class. Despite the unique ability of the Dragon Tamer class, and the fact that it could be put on par with professions such as Dragon Mage or Dragon Blood Warrior, it was simply unrealistic to find this great creature, let alone tame it. Even the old man asked the guy not to despair, as it was still a hidden class and limitless potential. Eventually, it might be possible to tame some subdragons and become the strongest, but Lu had little faith in that. He was generally perplexed as to how a tamer could become the strongest without the dragon itself. Of course, subdragons are also very strong and fierce creatures, but still not even close to their higher counterparts. By the way, for the last 800 years no one has managed to tame a single dragon. No matter how powerful people are, compared to these great creatures, they are just ants. Trying to tame them is akin to suicide, but the catch is that without a dragon, Lu can't even unlock his unique skills. The thought that he would never repay his aunt for all her hard work and efforts was devastating to the already downcast young man. As soon as the doors of the bakery opened, Hanku immediately hung around her nephew's neck, congratulating him on completing one of the most important days of his life. Of course, she immediately inquired about how it went, though she immediately warned him that she wouldn't be upset even if a non-combat class fell through. Lu explained that he had become a dragonborn, but without the dragon itself it was a pretty useless profession, and his aunt argued that it was just another proof of how strong the guy was. In any case, she promised to continue to support him as he entered university, but if Lu decided to stay home, she offered to sell buns together. After reaching the bed, the young man desperately threw himself down as if he was standing on the edge of a precipice. Hanku is only 26 years old, and she has dedicated her entire life to him alone. He just wanted to provide a decent existence for them, yet he was frustrated every time he remembered his profession. Of course, nothing is impossible, but just where to look for dragons Lu didn't know. Suddenly, a window appeared in front of his eyes, announcing the successful generation of the first divine level treasure map. Today, he only had time to try out the identification ability, so he clicked on the chest icon. The next moment, the system reported that the 3 low-grade cards had merged into a top-level treasure card. It would be issued daily. The only thing left to do was to collect the reward. The young man once again realized that his class, Dragon Tamer, was one of the most useless classes in the world, but if he used this system effectively, it would be possible to leave the ranks of the weak and truly become the strongest. In other words, this divine level card is his last chance, so he needs to pull himself together, because if he gives up, Lu Fang will spend the rest of his life at the bottom and won't be able to repay his aunt. Waking up in the early morning, Han found only a note left by his nephew, in which he warned that he was going to the Stony Plain and also asked not to worry. Lu promised to return home soon and make their lives better. Finally, the bus arrived, and besides the boy himself, 3 other people of most unpleasant appearance, well, except for a very pretty girl, disembarked on the outskirts of the plain. One of them suggested that Lu should go with them, for it was dangerous for such a young man to wander the desert alone, but he refused, pulling the man's hand away. The girl urged him to think again, but Lu was clear. He assumed that these guys were marauders who took the equipment of warriors killed by travelers. Seeing the big guy needing his sledgehammer, and apparently their not quite adequate girlfriend licking the blade of her knife, Lu realized that a fight was inevitable. The young man moved farther away, repeating that he was going to explore the area alone, and at the warning of danger, asked his new acquaintances not to worry, as he was a summoner and in case of anything to ask for help to his magical creatures. Fortunately, these thugs did not insist, and soon the young man made his way into the thicket of a certain forest. Finding a herd of unusually massive antelopes behind the bushes, he decided to go around, as even the horned herbivores were beyond him for now. However, despite the detour, it didn't get any better. Lu had just come to a clearing with equally dangerous wildebeests, and so he decided to walk carefully between them without attracting attention, but he didn't notice a frog that croaked shrilly as soon as he stepped on it. Catching the ungulate's eyes, Lu realized he had to run and duck to the side, avoiding a collision. Finally, he got to his feet and looked at the crushed toad and decided to avoid such things from now on, otherwise he would end up just like that amphibian. Anyway, the place from the map was found, and inside lay something that was going to change the tamer's fate, a real dragon egg, which, moreover, was beginning to crack. Suddenly, Lu pulled out a machete from behind his belt, which he used at the last moment to defend himself from the attack of a bloodthirsty fox. Using the available skill, the young man learned that the fox could only recover after 3 quick attacks, so he decided to wait for a retaliatory strike. At last, the agile beast attacked, and, dodging a final leap, Lu nailed its head to the ground with his machete. Suddenly the group came from behind, the leader of the group noticing that the boy had fooled them, for he could not summon his creatures even against such a weak enemy as the fox. Lu threw the body of the dead predator at their feet, asking them to take the skin if they wanted it and leave, but the insolent men wanted something more expensive, so they rushed to the egg, knocking the tamer off his feet. The girl immediately put a knife to his throat, urging him not to move. Finally, the big man took the egg from the nest, but suddenly the shell shattered and a small horned creature flew up. The leader of the gang threw a vial of potion at it, but it dodged and then tore the big man apart with such speed that he didn't even realize what he was doing. Lu realized that he couldn't miss such a chance, so he threw the girl's hand aside and ran straight to the dragon, informing the survivors that he really wasn't a summoner, his class was much rarer and more powerful. Lu touched the newborn's face, and the system reported a successful contract with the Black Dragon and unlocked some skills. There was only one piece of unfinished business left. The young man allowed his new friend to send the thugs to those they had killed for the treasure. Finally, Lu was able to be alone with his thoughts, but he still couldn't believe what had happened. He had now risen from the bottom to the top. Even though the dragonkin had only recently hatched, it already possessed great power, and so Lu couldn't even imagine what they would be able to do when this great creature grew up. Soon the dragon tamer would no longer be a useless class, but there was still one more problem. Lu began to think about what name to give his new friend, because Yugalek and Chernish didn't really fit. Suddenly, the dragon licked and put his paw on the wound that the fox had left, and then broke out of the tamer's hands and took on human form, turning into a beautiful girl. Of course, Lu was a little surprised at such an unexpected transformation, but first he decided to familiarize himself with the status window. As expected, all skills were unlocked after taming. As a tamer, he was now several times stronger than a normal human, not to mention the pet itself, only level 1, and already such incredible skills, a human wouldn't be able to match, even being level 20. Lu was now fully confident that no hidden class could match the dragon tamer. Watching the girl chew on anything she could find, he realized that the habits were still animal-like. By the way, the naming problem was still unresolved. Considering that the baby had hatched at dawn, Lu decided to name it Xiaoyi, and judging by his smile, he liked the name. The young man assumed that the new girlfriend was hungry, and the approving purr made it clear that it was time to hunt monsters in order to feed Xiaoyi. Lu also remembered the test that would determine whether or not he could enter the university, so it was necessary to return back to the city soon. Of course, the title of master and qualification to enter the best university is not far off, but no matter how it is, raising the level and mastering skills remains a priority. Lu suggested that the dragon go deep into the rocky plain, as that was usually where the tastiest monsters would be found, but before the explorers could even take a few steps, they were met by a pack of hyenas. These predators are much tougher and more dangerous than bloodthirsty foxes, and considering how hard it was to defeat a small animal, Lu decided that they should not fight. Nevertheless, with such a marvelous companion as a dragon, no plains creature would be afraid anymore. As soon as the tamer asked the pet to smash the hyenas, the dragon rose up and spewed a real lava flow at the predators. The system immediately reported the level increase of both friends, but Lu assumed that for a significant increase, a stronger monster was needed, for example, a three-headed lion, which had long been waiting for travelers in his cave. To defeat the ferocious boss of level 25, ordinary warriors would need a whole team, but the tamer only needs to give the order. Suddenly, the lion let out a shrill roar, which boosted its attack and defense stats for a while, and then attempted to create a powerful fireball. Lu realized that in order to break the monster's attack, it was necessary to act coherently, so he let Xiao attack first, and then, when the lion was bleeding to death, he energized himself with the dragon's energy to deliver the decisive blow. Such a cool boss brought a huge amount of experience points, raising the girl's level from 3rd to 14th, and the system reported unlocking another treasure map. Assuming that this time she would be able to get something valuable, Lu suggested that she go looking for it right away. Meanwhile, far away in the stony plain, a small group of 4 martial class members were puzzling over how to get to the desired dungeon, as another one was needed to open it. The warrior Sungu suggested going back to the city and bringing his comrades, but the brigandess Kair objected that it would take all day and the dungeon would only be available for 24 hours, which was not surprising considering that the rewards here were much greater than in other dungeons. Asked her friend not to despair, Jinqiu agreed that powers she would surely open more than one such dungeon, but some sense of resentment still overcame the girl. Suddenly the warrior sheathed his sword as he heard footsteps behind him, but Lu asked not to be disturbed, explaining that he was just passing by. The man already wanted to scold the traveler, as this is not a place for treasure seekers, but Qin calmed him down and asked the guy to enter the dungeon with them, promising to pay 100,000 dragon coins, and also warned that nothing would have to be done. The proposal to jointly sweep a dungeon with such a high level, and even coming from a representative of one of the richest families in Jianghai, seemed interesting to Lu, but he warned that he was not interested in money, but distributing the reward according to strength was quite an acceptable condition. Jean thought about it. The average level of her companions is around 20, and this guy looks the weakest. Nevertheless, his confidence in his strength confused the girl, but assuming that it was just the arrogance of a beginner, Jean agreed to form a team according to all the rules, promising to still pay the promised amount as a token of sincerity. Soon all 5 of them were at the location called the Village of Sorrow, and began to slowly walk forward, keeping their weapons at the ready. Guy noticed that the new team member's hands were free, so he asked if he didn't have any equipment, so Lu had to demonstrate the epic black dragon blade that he had managed to get thanks to the treasure map. Suddenly, hands appeared from the ground and then rotten zombies came out, so the warriors had to use their skills. After watching his comrades fight, Lu concluded that they had chosen a very effective tactic for this dungeon, combining the close attacks of the knights with the long-range attacks of the bandit archers. Finally, Jean also used her unique ability, explaining to the newcomer that Rain of Divine Light gives the ability to combine attacking enemies with healing allies, although the damage is much less than that of a normal mage, and the healing is not as good as that of a priest. Now it became clear to the guy that not only he was the lucky owner of the hidden class, but Lu decided to focus on the monsters, which were becoming more and more numerous. Gu ordered the brigand to protect the newcomer and the lady, and he himself together with the second warrior brought his sword down on the bloody zombies, but suddenly the young knight was horrified to find that the sword was simply stuck in the body of a dead man. Lu immediately realized that it was because of the zombie's ability called corpse poison. Only a priest could handle such a case, not even Qin's magic would help. Gu ordered his comrade to drop his sword, but after noticing that the latter's hand was half engulfed by the zombie, he himself rushed to help, ordering Kai to move to the first line and protect the others from the zombies. However, Lu asked not to disturb the girl, promising that he would deal with the dead himself. Gu tried to stop the reckless newcomer, but he clearly wasn't going to back down. With just a few swings of his epic black dragon blade, the zombies around him were once again rendered lifeless, and both knights had their swords back. The man was perplexed as to what level Lu actually possessed, as he thought he had been exploring the dungeon with a student who had just recently passed the distribution ceremony, but the young man countered that there was no point in lying and explained that he had come here to practice for an important exam. Jean still regarded the guy's words with some disbelief. After all, his attack level surpassed even Gu, who by the way was at level 28. Suddenly, one of the surviving zombies tried to pounce on the sorceress from behind, but Lu nailed the monster to the wall before the bandit could fire her crossbow. The young man warned that every next monster would be higher level, so he announced that he would go ahead if nobody minded, and Qin did not object, however, informing that the boss was hiding somewhere in the village. After pondering for a while, the girl remembered a student who was also named Lu Fan and had obtained the Hidden Dragon Tamer class, except she didn't believe that it was the same person, because that student simply couldn't have such strength. Soon, the entire team had reached the village itself and had already fought the first wave of zombies. Lu realized that Qin's skills weren't enough to take out the corpse poison, and therefore, if they didn't get out of the dungeon soon, the young knight would simply die and turn into the same ugly dead man. Also noticed one oddity. Despite the reliable data, neither she nor any of her comrades can see the boss. Suddenly, a wounded knight shrieked about the monster behind Ji's back and slumped to the ground unconscious. Turning around, the warriors found a huge iron zombie in front of them, and Lu concluded that if they couldn't quickly overpower this monster, it might swallow the guy alive, poisoned with corpse poison. Gu applied his unique midnight execution and brought his sword down on the zombie with force, but it had no effect. Lu realized that he needed to make some quick attacks, and therefore there was no other option but to activate his dragon abilities. The first thing he did was to use some of his pet's energy to boost his own characteristics and rushed forward, ordering Gu to protect his wounded comrade and the brigand while he and Qin took care of destroying the monster. Finally, it was time to strike the decisive blow, and the young man jumped up, using his dragon claw ability to turn the tamer's hand into a pet's paw, while the sorceress summoned the Rain of Divine Light again. After a couple of strikes, the team members noticed that the zombie was starting to fall apart, and therefore assumed that merge was necessary to keep the monster in shape. During his years with the Qin family, Gu had seen many masters, and now, watching Lu fight, he could say with all certainty that this guy possessed a hidden class. Meanwhile, almost all of the zombie's iron shell had disintegrated, and its true appearance began to show through more and more. Finally, Lu made one last dash and hit the monster with such force that it simply shattered into pieces. The bandit awkwardly assumed that the boss was now defeated, but what Qin was more interested in was who this Lu Fan was, since he was able to defeat a level 20 monster in just a couple of punches. The silver chest also appeared, and Qin recalled the rules of distribution, although she admitted that in the beginning, all the squad members had underestimated the talented newcomer, and Gu agreed that he himself now felt as if he was only taken for quantity. In any case, having opened the chest, the warriors could not find anything more valuable than some consumables, like potions, although with the help of one of them they managed to cure the poison knight. Lu Fang realized that there simply couldn't be such lame rewards in a level 20 dungeon, but the honesty of the Qin family in the person of their daughter, who gave everything found in the chest to the young man, made him smile. By the way, the sorceress herself smelled something wrong, as the portal still did not appear despite the victory over the boss. The bandit offered to walk and look around, but Lu asked everyone to stay put, drawing the attention of his comrades to the dungeon status window, according to which, the Iron Zombie is definitely not the boss. Gu wondered why the guy would think so, but Qin informed that as a light mage herself, she could sense the presence of darkness. She pointed her friends to the lake where she believed the true boss was hiding. As soon as the warriors got a little closer, several huge hands dotted with eyes rushed towards them from under the water. The elder knight immediately went for a knockout, and one of the monstrous limbs almost managed to grab the sorceress, but Lu came to her aid, carrying the girl to safety. Finally, the owner of those arms, a level 25 grieving corpse, came out,